Welcome back. In this session, we're now going to look at actually starting the meeting and looking at some of the settings that we can change once the meeting gets started. So we're ready to go. So we're going to look at starting the meeting as the host. So to start the meeting as the host, you need to open up your Zoom application. So click on the blue desktop icon. Once you do that, your screen will appear with your Zoom icons. And then what we need to do is come down to where it says schedule, click on schedule, and you will see a list of the meetings. And then select the meeting that you want to start. So simply click on the name of the meeting, press the start button, and the meeting starts to load. So that's how you load it as a host. Then to start the meeting as a participant. So what the participant does is they open up their application as well, either on their laptop, PC, or their tablet or their phone. And once they do that, they press the blue join button. When they press the blue join button, they then need to enter in the ID that was emailed to them. So if they type in the ID number, they can then type in their name into the box. And then once they've done that, they simply press the join button. And when you press the join button, what happens then is a screen will load and you will be asked, do you want to join with computer audio or do you want to test your speakers and microphone? I would always, the first time you use my Zoom, I would always test the speakers and microphone, because at least then you'll make sure that they're working. But if you're happy and you know that they're working, you simply press the join with computer audio and it will load up your screen. Within a couple of minutes, you'll start to see all the people who have entered the room and their pictures will come up in front of you like so. So we're in and we're ready to go. Now we're going to have a look at how to adjust some of your meeting settings, okay? So once we do that, it'll make it a bit more comfortable for everybody and make it easier for you to hear and see and so on. But before we do that, I also like to mention how you can, move out people who are uninvited guests to the Zoom event and to keep an eye out on what you need to look for, okay? So it's preventing what we call Zoom bombing. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that in the newspapers over the last couple of weeks. And basically what Zoom bombing is when somebody decides that they want to jump into your meeting and they haven't been invited, okay? So there's a couple of security things that we can do to prevent this from happening. And I just want to talk to you about that before we move on, because it is really, really important, okay? So the first thing, and I think I've mentioned it before, is you don't give out your personal meeting ID, okay? So don't give that to anybody unless, as we keep saying, it's going to be a quick meeting with a couple of colleagues or your family and friends, okay? Otherwise, make sure you always use the generated ID when you're scheduling a meeting. Always make sure you have a password on it, okay? I think at the moment now, Zoom is making sure people do. It's a must. They have it set on as you must do it once you schedule the meeting. So it's really, really important to have that password on. Another feature is the waiting rooms. As you seen earlier on, it's set to on. So we need to use the waiting rooms. And the waiting rooms, as I mentioned, is very, very useful because it means the host has a couple of minutes. They can see who is sitting in the waiting rooms and they can see if anybody's name isn't on the list of invited guests, and if it's not, well then they don't let them into the room, okay? Also make sure that the audio and video is muted coming in, and again we've seen that in the settings when we were scheduling the meeting. And also turn off the screen sharing. Now I'll show you how to do that as we go through the presentation, but that can be important as well. Screen sharing is a great feature which comes with Zoom, and generally the host will do all the screen sharing, but in some meetings you might want other people to share as well. The host can switch that on when the meeting starts, but prior to that always make sure that it is switched off, and we will have a look at that, okay? So getting started now. So once you load in and you're the host, this is the screen that you actually see. So it probably doesn't look much different to a participant screen, except we've got a couple of extra buttons down the bottom. So we've got a security button, we've got manage participants, we've got breakout rooms, and a record. I think everything else the participant will also have. You'll see on the left hand side here we have the mute button. We also have the start video button, okay? So if you want to unmute your sound, you simply press on that button there and it will unmute the sound. If you want to hide the video so that people can see you, press on the start video there and the video will start. Now, just a little tip for you. Generally, when we're in meetings and stuff like that, it's always advisable to mute your mic. And the reason for that is Sometimes you'll find there'll be a lot of feedback on the line or crackling. In some people's houses, maybe there could be a lot of traffic moving around, people moving around the rooms and stuff. And if that's the case, the people at the meeting can hear all of this. So it's very advisable to generally mute your mic until you have to speak. So the quickest way to mute and unmute is actually to press the space bar. So instead of having to move your mouse down and click on unmute, if you simply press the space bar, it takes the mute off, and press the space bar again and it mutes it again, okay? Just a little tip on the video as well. If you're having trouble with your broadband and you're finding that it's starting to break up and stuff like that, and it's getting a bit, the screen is starting to freeze a little bit, well, my advice would be to actually switch off the video, okay? So just leave the video switched off, and when you do, a black screen like this appears and the person's name just comes up. It's just in case, because with the broadband, because sometimes broadband can be tricky and you don't want to miss the meeting, so just mute your video and you're fine, okay? You'll be able to continue to participate. Now, so the next thing we're going to have a look at is the views, the different type of views that you can see. So you've got gallery view or you've got speaker view, okay? So gallery view is basically where you can see all the pictures on the screen. Now, I think with a PC and a laptop, the most amount of pictures you can see on any one screen is 49, okay? So that's quite a lot. In gallery view, if you're looking at the pictures on an iPad, the most you can see is 9, okay? If you need to see any more on the PC or on the iPad, there's generally a little arrow button over on the right that you can click and it will scroll and show you the extra pictures that you can't see, okay? So just to be aware of that. But that's the gallery view. If you don't want to have the gallery view, you can click up on the top up here, there's a little button, and when you press on it, it brings you into the speaker view, and you'll basically see whoever is speaking, a little box will appear around their name and their picture comes to the front, okay? So that's just a little how to move around the views and stuff like that. Now, the other little tips that I want to talk to you about now, which is really, really important, and we touched on them a couple of minutes ago, is the security. It's very, very important, you know, to try and tie down the meeting to make sure that you don't have these uninvited guests coming in, okay? So the easiest thing to do it is, with the Zoom, we have the facility of actually locking the door, which I think is absolutely brilliant, okay? So what that basically means is when you're happy that all the participants are in the room and you're not expecting any more people to arrive, you simply lock the door. And that means that nobody else can get in. Even though you've given them the ID and the password, they go to key it in and they're told that the meeting is now locked and they can't get in, okay? So that's quite a good feature. So basically when you're in, and when you're out, that's it, okay? So to do this, you will see on the host's screen, there's a toolbar down the bottom and it has security. And as I said, this is a new feature. It's only there about 4 or 5 weeks. So if you click on security, what's going to happen is you're going to get a menu that pops up like this here. And then it allows you to switch on or off the following items. So the first one is the lock the meeting. So if you wanted to lock the meeting, you simply click and a little tick box appears and it then locks the meeting. On this particular example, we can see that the waiting room is enabled, which again, I wouldn't turn it off, but you can if you want. And we also have options here. Do we want to allow the participants to share the screen? As we mentioned earlier on, probably not initially. So you may want to tick that little button there and that will make sure that they can't. And again, as I said, as the meeting goes on, if you need to change that, you certainly can. Are you going to allow the participants to chat and rename themselves? Yes or no, and you can decide, okay? Then if you want to remove somebody, there's a button here to remove the participants. So if you wanted to get rid of somebody, we'll say it was Joe Soap, you would go into this button here, remove participants, and it would list everybody who was in the room. And if you saw the name Joe Soap and you wanted to exit them out for whatever the reason, you simply click on Joe Soap. Once you do that, a little button appears and says remove. You click remove and they are removed out of the meeting. So it's very, very, very useful. The next thing we're going to have a quick look at is just adjusting the settings, okay? Adjusting your sound and your video settings once you come into the meeting. So as we said earlier on, you've got your mute and you've got your stop video. If it looks like this one here, mute with no line going through it, it means that you can talk away, everybody can hear you. If you have a line through it like the one below, it means that it's muted. The same with the video is on this sample. If there was a line going through it, it would be off, okay? Now, just beside the mute button, there's a little arrow pointing up. If we press on the arrow pointing up, we get this little screen here where it gives us more options. This is a useful screen if you need to test your speakers and your microphone. If you've got your microphone on and nobody can hear you and you can't hear anybody, it's no harm to come back here and maybe test the mic and microphone. So test the speaker and microphone, you simply click and it runs through a little test and it normally fixes it for you, okay? Then the next screen here is we're looking at the video. So as we said, the video's on or the video's off. You simply click on or off, switches it on or off. And we've got a little up arrow to the right here as well. Again, it's going to give us another menu. So if we click that little button, this is the menu that we get, okay? So it gives us the options of, it tells us what webcam. We've got a webcam on the PC and it's enabled. It gives us some video settings that we can go in and have a look at, which we'll now in a second. And we can choose a virtual background, which we'll have a look at in a little while. So we're going to go into the video settings. So to do that, we're going to have a look at how to touch up our picture, okay? So basically what this will do is it's going to enhance the picture on the screen and make you look 10 years younger, I promise. So what you need to do is you clicked on that little drop down or that little arrow beside video, and they gave you this menu, and you simply click on video settings. And once you click on video settings, it brings you into this little screen here. Now, you will normally see yourself sitting in front there. And once you do, you'll see this little screen down here where we have an option that says touch up my appearance. If you click that, really what it does to the picture is it makes it a little bit sharper, to be honest with you. It doesn't do a whole pile more, but why not? So just press that button. It'll make the picture look a little bit sharper, and then you just click the X to exit out, and then that will be you ready to rock and roll, okay? So we're actually ready to go now. We're ready to start our meeting, and we're going to have a look at that in the next section. Talk to you soon, and thank you for watching.